I'm
have
sure you will do it correctly.
Alex Delive.
Perfect.
Woohoo! Alex Delive will be our moderator today from Collect.
Exactly. Thank you, Deidre.
Awesome. Okay. Ish Itxaso, okay, from Notion Capital is joining us today. We also have Andreï Sochala from Aircall, Stan Massueras, right? I did that right?
Correct, correct.
All right, from TBC, from former sales, former VP of sales.
To be
I'm
confirmed,
sorry,
yeah.
TBC is TBD in English, in American. And then I'm Deidre Hudson. I'm the head of sales and marketing at Yale Payments. So forgive all my blunders today, but welcome.
Thank you, Deidre. So maybe before we jump in, what I used to do when I moderated a panel is just to ask the different panelists, I would say, about what type of client they have and to give you more context, because their answers, I would say, typically in the sales approach will shift a lot depending on that. So maybe if you give us a little bit more of context about your experience and your current company, would be great.
That's pretty funny as an investor talking about our customers. Our customers are in fact LPs, limited partners who give us money and they are looking for a return. So that's, we need to give a return to them. Now we work with a lot of founders and we are all day long selling ourselves because there is a lot of money out there. So when you want to get to the best founders, the reality is that we spend so much time selling and positioning our brand, our investments, our support to the companies. Notion is a B2B software investor. We've been investing in B2B software for 15 years. We are specialists. We have 7 people in the team full-time who help on the go-to-market with the companies or work with the companies. So I'm the one doing investments and they come in. So we basically work together a lot, and that's why basically I'm in the panel. Let's put it this way.
Andreï.
Yes, thanks, Alex. So if you think of Aircall, think of SMB companies and mid-market companies. Let's talk a number of employees, companies from, let's say, 3. So you've really just started up to maybe 1,000 employees who have teams making phone calls and generally speaking, communicating externally. So usually your sales team, your customer service teams, those are our customers. Those are our teams that want to improve the way they're working, improve the way they're communicating with their customers, and get the best softwares out there. So that's who we're selling to. Now, this session is also about buyer enablement. So just want to give you a bit of perspective of us, Aircall, and us when we are buying. Where do we look at ourselves? Aircall is an 800 employee company, so we today look at all those softwares out there, and also are on the lookout for softwares that are, let's say, adapted to a company of 800 employees with a sales team of more than 200, customer service of close to 100, and hence always try and get the best of the technologies. So that's for
Yeah, you're right. It's also interesting to see the topic in another perspective. Just to what the balance between, I would say, small accounts and big accounts, just to give the audience more context.
Yeah, good point. So of course, like always, when you look at your data in volume or in dollars, the answer is quite different. In volume, we've got nearly 70% of our customers that are, let's say, in this 1 to let's call it 100 employees mark. There's just this high volume, high velocity. Aircall is the kind of solution where you adopt very quickly. The ease of use of such a tool is so strong that it generates lots of small leads, and then of course we've got our other lead gen channels that are bringing us our larger accounts. Now in dollars, this percentage is a bit different: 40% on the smaller ones, 60% on the larger ones. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Stan, so right now it's to be confirmed, but you used to work at Lattice and before Intercom. I won't do the full CV, but based on your experience, what type of clients you used to work with?
So at Intercom, so when I joined Intercom, Intercom was around like the tens of millions of AR. And by the time I left, we had crossed the 200 millions. And in this kind of lapse of time, we went from I would say hardcore PLG, credit cards, self-service, $99 a month. To can you hear me now? Perfect. So I'm just going to repeat. So when I joined Intercom, Intercom was very kind of PLG in terms of setup, credit cards, month-to-month subscription, and we had to kind of break the glass ceiling to step by step, slowly but surely go up market in order to make sure that we're increasing the size of our contract. We're mainly selling to small businesses. That was our kind of target, ideally businesses between 50 to 500 employees, like Aircall, who was a customer and also a great partner of ours. And then I spent a year and a half at Lattice, where we're focusing mainly on mid-market. And for us, mid-market was companies between 500 to 5,000. And this is where, especially during my time at Lattice, that the microeconomic downturn happened, and I saw rapid shift happening in terms of the buyer trends, and also adding a lot more scrutiny, consolidation, and also the need for sales team to be a lot more disciplined, a lot more structured, and ready to show, to provide positive ROI to companies. But lovely to meet you all.
Thank you. Deidre.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm Deidre Hudson. I'm currently the head of marketing and sales for a fintech called Yell, like in shouting. And prior to that, I was the CMO of another fintech in New York, and I've been in B2B marketing for about 25 years, doing everything from looking at enterprise, mid-market, SMB. Currently, we are focused on the SMB market, and I'm really excited to talk about this because I think that this subject of next-gen buyer enablement is really an amalgamation of both marketing and sales and kind of what that looks like from the buyer perspective. So excited to be here.
Thank you. Quickly, maybe in the audience, if you can raise your hand, do you mostly sell to enterprise? Who is selling to enterprise? Okay, mid-market and SMBs. Okay, so
Kind of a mix.
all of them.
All the above.
Okay. So maybe to start with, well, you introduced the topic, so talking about next gen, buyer enablement. I would say we saw a huge switch in the last maybe 2 years. Can you tell us, I would say, so you talked about ROI, really, a change in the buyer way of doing. So can you tell us more about what you've seen, and do you think it's going a little bit better now than it used to be 2 years ago? So what's your current opinion?
Oh, okay, I'll start. So yes, I think that there's been an evolution, right? We used to talk about sales enablement, and especially in an enterprise play, that was how does marketing help sales? How do we create the decks? How do we create the PowerPoints? How do we create the content? And then as we moved more from that sales enablement, we started to recognize more about buying committees, and it was still marketing helping to provide content for now the CFO that may be involved in that buying process and other personas involved in that buying process. As the curve has changed, and we all know that statistic from Gartner about people being 60, 65, even 80% through the buying process before they engage in sales. Now that switch has flipped to how do we engage or how do we enable the buyer? And I think what that means to me is that we want to help that buyer make a decision, first of all, that they need to change. And I think that's where marketing comes in to help the buyer enablement. And then once they make that decision to change, we want to help sales provide the information that the buyer needs to choose your product. So if you think about it like a tree, it's like on this side is the buyer enablement. Marketing is going to help that buyer get to a decision. And then on the other side of that is going to be the sales enablement. Sales is going to help them choose choose your product. I read an interesting statistic also about something like 75 or 73% of deals that are made with the buyer just self-selecting and self-educating, but 43% of those buyers that do self-educate regret that decision. So it really does need to be this dual mode between marketing and sales, helping to, again, educate the buyer about the need for a change and then educating the buyer about using your product.
Yeah, I'll say fully aligned, and I will say it because like probably all of you here are buyers. It is hard to buy well, and it was already hard to buy well before 2 years ago. It definitely became harder, but the reality is that think of the last piece of software, the last technology you decided to push for your own team. And maybe this one was a good decision. Now think of the last 4 or 5. Usually there's one of them that you think, okay, I definitely shouldn't have done this one. And it's things, you said it completely, things have reversed in the sense that if today you're not kind of like really showing empathy towards the buyer and the real story of what it is to start thinking of one pains, then starting considering a solution, and then actually really like discussing with different softwares, not being like going into the right process of evaluating, and then finally like convincing internally your different stakeholders to actually buy. This is already, if you want to do it well, such a complex process. And we sometimes forget about it because we keep focusing on the sales rep and how they can actually sell more and sell even like faster and so on. Now, definitely, I would say yes. Over the last 2 years, you mentioned it. For us, the key difference we saw with especially the tech space that started kind of like reversing itself, the finance persona became way more involved. So it was already hard for the buyer to buy well by convincing internally their teams, their other stakeholders, their ops team, and so on, that this was the right solution for them. Now, showing a proper ROI that actually really makes sense and that actually has value and is not bullshit, because you know that how this simple Google sheet can simply become 2 multiplications and an addition, and this is your ROI. This has definitely become, like, we've seen a big difference over the last 2 years. And so, of course, from our end, it's how can we help our reps enable those buyers better by actually providing them the tools, by actually going into the roots, the actual, the day-to-day of the org, of the customer. And that's not easy, for sure.
Few trends that I'm seeing. Can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. So number one, if you are lucky to work for a startup or a company that was growing really fast during the COVID years, which was a large chunk of SaaS businesses, number one, I think we all kind of lowered our bar in terms of hiring because it was very, very hard to hire sales talent. And having an empty seat costs a lot of money to any SaaS companies. So we were kind of hiring super, super fast. Enablement of our reps was not done properly. It was all about, let's make sure we've got those seats filled so we can continue to sustain this growth. But then when the microeconomic downturn happened in November 2022, this is when the growth was not at the same level, and most companies were exposed to all our kind of enablement weaknesses. So the knowledge of our reps, the disciplines, sales methodologies that they were using. And that's what happened for most of us. And I think if you look at companies that manage to bounce back on the back of this tough 18 months, they're usually embracing sales methodologies like Medpic, making sure that, as Andreï mentioned, that you also make sure that you don't only latch to one point of contact, your champion, but you multi-thread, and especially with the CFO and CEO, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that will make the purchase. And even if your product, improves the life of, the support team or the sales team or the marketing team, whatever, the CFO will be like, this is, not business critical. So providing a clear ROI is going to be key for you. And so for that, don't focus just on what will be the time save for your sales team or your marketing team, but think about what is the cost of doing nothing for them. And that's where you can build a tangible ROI piece that then your champion can present in front of the economic buyer and to increase your chances of winning the deal. But multi-threading, so for example, at Lattice, we knew that if we were only focusing on going after one point of contact, it was very unlikely for us to sign the deal. If we had 4 points of contact, we're 78% likely to close that deal. So again, making sure that for sure there will always be someone within the part of the buying committee that will be against purchasing the software. You need to find this person.
Was it a metric that you tracked in your CRM, for example?
Of course, like number of daily activities for emailing, calling,
But number of well, active contact, for example.
Yes. So for example, using like a tool like Mojo was earlier on stage, or Gong, you can identify as well. You can set up specific alerts and to be like, hey, Andreï, on the deal, with Intercom, you put that deal into commit for this quarter. I can see that you're only working with one point of contact. Even if the god of sales will be good for you, it's very unlikely that it's going to happen. Make sure you connect with the entire buying committee. And also one last trend that I've been seeing is that now you need to influence the entire buying committee, and then you have to pitch in front of investors as well, because usually the board member, when a deal exceeds a specific amount, this is when also it needs to go to board approval, and that's when also you need to also prove a positive ROI also for the investors, which is something that I've never seen before the microeconomic downturn and 20 years of career in sales.
Interesting, and it would be a good transition with Itxaso. Usually, this type of decision, I would say, what the amount where you can see that your portfolio companies ask you to validate the decision?
I was going to say I haven't seen any of those on my boards. I sit on 7 boards, just so you get an
this is something that will change.
And thankfully, I don't start getting those because there is so much stuff that we need to go to. I usually don't do those decisions. We don't have those decisions because there is not such a big ACV that we are paying for, let's say, and unless it's over 250,000, I don't think we will ever have one of those on our boards, thank God. Because we have so much stuff going on. But going to the enablement, I think the trends definitely, and what we are looking at in terms of the investment when we look to invest in companies, because obviously we are looking to invest in companies that even our own companies are buying, because we invest in B2B software. So companies in my portfolio include Paddle, that maybe you've seen around here, GoCarless, Currency Cloud, that we sold a couple of years ago in France. Maybe you know Forest Admin, maybe you know Orus in the B2B insurance space. So what do they use for those? Definitely we've identified a big trend, and I think that comes not only for my companies but also for individuals. We've seen a big trend towards much younger business owners. People who want to run their businesses, the buyers are much younger business owners who want to run their businesses on their phones, on their pockets, and they want to have end-to-end solutions for their businesses. So it's not anymore and the older generation running on their premises and on their computer, desktop computers. And so that's the buyer. That's basically where we see the buyer. These people are people who want to maybe test the products before they buy them. Now, there is a big conflict here because sales people really, and I heard this perspective around the table here, they really want to push it. How do you show the ROI? How do you? The reality is that if we are thinking of the buyers and you do think you have the best product for them, you shouldn't be worried about telling them who are the 5 other companies that they should be looking at, and you are the best for them. The problem is when those people buy a product and 3 months after they realize they don't have X, Y, and Z. They look online and they can buy another one. And that's where the problem comes. And I think when we look at it from the sales perspective, there is a big conflict because I want to increase revenue, I want to have my bonus. But the reality is that if you are thinking of the buyer, what you are thinking is, how does this buyer buys me because I am the best solution for them? Not because I am right now trying to talk to 5 people in their company and convince them that that is my best solution, because otherwise churn goes up to the roof, which is what investors hate, obviously. Not maybe salespeople, because they already got their bonus, for sure.
No, you're right, and I think sales enablement was something that some companies started before the others, so they could differentiate with the competition. But I would say now it's becoming best practice, and everybody does. So what can you do, I would say, practically to be, I would say, better than your competition, talking about sales enablement? Did you experience things? Well, for example, I don't know, there is a company called Guideflow here. They are doing like, how do they say, interactive demo. this is something that could be embedded, so at least you can show the product without giving access to the product. Is this something that you already tried in your sales enablement process?
Yep. So first of all, to your point, I completely agree. And for me, and now to your point, a trial and now I know some softwares today don't allow them, but for me today, buying without a trial is like crazy. It's you should be able to test your use case.
You did it with Salesforce, for example.
Sorry?
You did it with Salesforce.
I know. And I was saying it was hard buying.
I know
and
you
we did
regret.
some mistakes. I know. No, but really, there's truth, and sometimes you're forced into it, and there are some softwares which have like a leverage, and you can't. But the reality is that a trial should be like a must in any evaluation, but even preparing a trial, and that's where like I was saying, like it's hard to buy. Preparing a trial properly, identifying the different use case, the different data points that you're going to be expecting to have here and that's super hard, and this is where we see the best sellers who are actually able to enter and really be part of the company that they're selling to really say, okay, so that's what you're after, that's what you're going to do. Because all buyers are not like maybe ops oriented, and at the very early stage don't have their ops team involved, or maybe don't even have an ops team involved. So for me, that's one in terms of like in the buying process. Now, what kind of tool that are we recommending to make kind of like the buyer enablement stronger? Some of you might have heard of digital sales rooms. Okay, so those are basically kind of like mini websites that the sales rep is able to create for the buyer, where when it's a URL, so when they open it, they have access to basically all the information that should be key to them and that should help them convince internally or get the information internally to the right people. So here, of course, you would put maybe the demo that you did for this customer. You would put maybe the actual presentation that you built for them, but maybe then actually two different specific links on the exact thing that they are very worried that they will actually might discover 3 months later that they will actually that will not work. And we know those are always the usual suspects, like is the integration really working or not, stuff like this. So that's I'd say something that came out quite recently, and in terms of buyer enablement is giving the buyer more, let's say, information to take the right decisions if it's again well being used in an honest way, I would say, by the seller.
I think another, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I think another, and I like that, and I really like what you said also earlier about empathy. But I think incorporating a PLG movement, if you have a sales-led movement, is also another consideration. But the stipulation is that if you are doing a PLG as a buyer enablement, right, you need to make sure that the support that you have is like 100%. Don't throw someone into a freemium, a PLG, and then, you know, they have to rely on sorting through FAQs and other support documents that they have a problem. They can't reach someone on the phone to ask questions. So it has to be like a supported, super supported PLG that you use in conjunction with the sales-led in order to use that as part of your buyer enablement. I think could be a good option as well.
+1 for digital sales room, super powerful as well, you know, to include on this kind of landing page for your customer, or your compliance certification, which, you know, will also help you to identify if, you know, the prospect is a good fit or is a good fit for you or not. Mutual action plan, you know, to really establish who does what and when between you and the buyer. This speeds things up. And also, what I love with most of the tools like Topo or doc.us, you can check the virality as well. You know, you share it with your champion, and you see how many people within the organization will be checking and learning about your organization. Number 2, I saw a few folks, you know, raising their hands, you know, who sell an enterprise product. It is very hard, you know, to go from enterprise, you know, sales-led to PLG in terms of having a self-service channel to be able to gate the features, you know, that would be premium versus non-premium. All the payment system, it is like a huge project to take, which will slow down your innovation. But so we were in that case at Lattice, you know, we're selling mainly to mid-market and enterprise, and we didn't want to have a self-service engine. So for that, we're using a tool actually built by some French people located here in Paris, a tool called GuideFlow, which I highly recommend, which create guided tours of your solution. You can embed it on your website, so the buyer can actually play and have a bit of feel of how your product react and might drive value for them. So try to see as well, nowadays a lot of great tools like guide flows that you can leverage. Disclaimer: I'm not an investor in guide flow, just a customer.
Has been mentioned twice in this panel already, so it looks like they are sponsoring, right?
They are not. Okay, so maybe talking about personalization, how you can, I would say talking about next gen is also talking about personalization, and how can you do that at scale? Do you use AI data to, I would say, to give the best personalized experience to your buyers?
I definitely think it's very, very important to onboard customers. I think some of the things that we've been talking about, using some of the PLG type of strategies to provide that little bit of an experience on the product and so on. If you don't have a fully self-serve onboarding specifically, and you can do that without you don't need AI to do that. It's like a pretty simple thing to do. You could use AI, or you can drop a website, a URL somewhere, and so use AI to scribe that and to use basically to read the website to understand which type of business you are in, and therefore pre-populate with your website, with your connection to LinkedIn, whatever, pre-populate that and create the template workflow that it works for. I'm a lawyer, it works for lawyers. I am an architect, it works for architects, because my website is, and that's by reading it. But really, to start, you really don't need AI. I think AI word is overused these days. You don't need it.
And aside from that, sorry, but yeah, going with that point, something like ZoomInfo, they do like a free trial. You could call it PLG, free trial, whatever. But again, if you're going to use that for personalization, use the micro signals that you get from the buyer sampling the product, right? So what kinds of searches, I'll take the ZoomInfo example, what kinds of searches are they doing? What kinds of data are they looking for? What kinds of data are they trying to consume? What features are they using in the product? Use that, and if you use that, you get some idea of personalization in terms of what kinds of things that the buyer is looking for, and you can, again, incorporate that into your buyer enablement strategy. But don't just sit on that data, use it, right? Use those signals that you're getting from it.
Andreï?
Yeah, for me, when I hear personalization and when I look at all the different AI tools that were created, that have been founded regarding this, I also think we're still on the sales enablement part and not on the buyer enablement part. Meaning, those are things, I've seen some things where they're through your LinkedIn profiles and all your social touches, basically it's able to go and find actually your MBTI profile and actually then adjust exactly how you're going to be reaching out to this person. And why not? I mean, here we're talking about really trying to create this moment when your prospect is going to answer you and connect. And so why not? But this is more kind of like what means can you give to your sellers to have this connection built. Now, I still today haven't seen like the degree of personalization with AI, so very much linked to you, that really today adds value on the buyer enablement side, and yeah, have this going. I still think it's more on the sales enablement side.
Quick question, because, well, you are leading teams. You are not, I would say, doing the sales enablement by yourself. And I think it changed a lot, like over the last few years, from marketing to sales. So now sales enablement in the end of salespeople. How do you make sure that they are doing it properly? Because talking about tools, for example, I'm sure that most of the sales are well equipped. But now, are they using, for example, the digital sales room, mutual action plan correctly? How do you track that? How do you train them? How do you make sure that it applies on the field?
I can start. So first of all, every single time that I join an organization to build a sales team, I always, hire this two type of profile. who's going to be within the sales team, who's going to be the CMO in residence, which means someone that I hire that have a marketing background might be joining us as an account executive or BDR or account manager. But this person has a great eye for copywriting, great eye for building a beautiful pitch deck, great eye as well to organize events without the intervention of marketing. So we can make sure that we leverage marketing to throw gas on the fire, but making sure that we don't rely on one or two marketing folks in order to scale. So that's why like finding this person within your sales team is going to be crucial. Number two is like the kind of growth hacker in residency within the team. So I love personally hiring folks that are previous founders, folks that started a company and it didn't work, but they have a strong appetite to test new tools, to hack some of the internal project, just to make sure that you always focus on innovation. And again, like you don't want to work in silo compared to RevOps or marketing, but you also want to make sure that you move super fast and you don't rely on other team to be able to develop your revenue.
Yeah, and I think, marketing is always going to represent the one-to-many, and sales, I think, is always going to represent the one-to-one. So it really has to be, that's why I said earlier, I'm just really excited to see this coming together of these two different disciplines in order to create this enablement. So that's how I think that you can achieve that as well.
What I'll add maybe is that there's definitely a tool consolidation trend happening, and it's normal. Honestly, yeah, there's been an inflation of the number of tools that sales teams use, or generally speaking, companies use. And so looking at adoption of the tools and being, again, very true and honest on what actual use case, what value are we really getting from each tool that we're using, that is part, of I would say, it is the responsibility and accountability of a revenue leader, and ideally, yes, held by an enablement team, if again the company can afford it. And for me, this should be there should be no taboo here. Like every tool is replaceable, or more, in other words, every tool can be removed.
It's not only a question of tools; it's also, I would say, a question of
you're
process
right.
and having the process applied correctly.
You're right.
So you mentioned in the introduction that if you are sellers, you are also buyers. So it could be interesting to see if you have been like impressed over the last few months or maybe more by a company like having crazy sales enablement and like really helping you to buy. So did you have good experience, good thing that, and did you try then to imply them into your company?
The answer is no, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper on that. We are only a 30 people company, even though we have 1.2 billion under management. This current fund is 300 million. We are operating in the regulated industry. We raise money. This 1.2 billion is not our money. We raise money from what I called earlier our customers, and because of that, we need to be very careful. So we have a big compliance team within this 30 people company, which sounds weird, but it is. And you are going to be, and obviously we invest in tech. My associates would like to use all the tech in the world. They build things. They are developers. Many of them, they come from an operating background. They've been building tools at startups. They want to use all those tools. And then we have this compliance team, which is stopping us to use anything, right? So everyone is tracking which tools are we using in the company. You would be shocked with the few companies, tech companies, that pay attention to security, to have very good summary of what do they do in security and whether they can be compliant or not. There's just no information at all. So we get banned so many products just because the companies in tech don't have an explanation of what do they do and how are they compliant and how do they preserve the data. Basically, that's pretty simple, but it's incredible.
When you are buying a product, then for your company, are you doing, I would say, the opposite traditional way? So basically, usually it's more like you're convinced about the upside that you will have with the software, and then in the end you do the compliance. But in your case, maybe you should just start with compliance, and then if you're selected, you can pitch the solution.
That really doesn't happen with 50 individuals. I mean, our associates who are like 20 something, and they are trying to hack everything they can on the data to be able to track the market, identify people who are building new companies, identify business angels who change their profile to, I mean, they track everything. We have developers in-house who have built our own teams because we use a lot of technology ourselves. These people want to use everything. It's usually compliance who comes back and they are like, we identified these 10 software that you guys are using, we haven't approved those. Let's see which one is the best in the market. And that ends up pretty much on a fight, ultimately. That wasn't the best, that whatever. But hey, they are the only ones who have been able to show that we can use this for an FCA-regulated, financially regulated company.
Yeah, so looking at tools that we've tested and buying processes where I felt like it was like a level up, and yes, there has been one. I went through, like we saw over the last maybe 1 year and a half, 2 years, I've evaluated many AI tools that could be useful to my sales team, and I've seen a lot of bullshit out there, let's call it. But there is one that stood out. It's a tool called Attention Tech. They would probably position themselves as a direct competitor of Mojo that we just heard just before. And the reality is that for me, what impressed me here, and I actually even did a whole presentation about how this buying journey was, and I actually presented it to my team. They, from the very first beginning, they were like, all after, are we going to be able to deliver value to your user? Like they really kind of like had this approach where they wanted through the trial, through the objections, to be sure that our users, which are ultimately the end, the ones who are supposed to be more productive with those AI tools, are they going to be really like seeing the value? And throughout the whole buying journey, of course, they were helping me on my conversations with my CFO, with the rest of the leadership side, but they were so focused, so dedicated on the actual team using it, on the champions that I had dedicated, and I had made their life so complex in picking like 6 people from 6 different continents because I wanted the language to be tested very thoroughly. I didn't believe in kind of like AI that would really get like conversations from 6 different languages and translate it into data that's going to be filling my CRM automatically and so on. And despite this, they really went above and beyond here in the way they were serving, I would say, my team. So in my case, I'd say, yes, I was impressed by this buying journey, and I do think that it came back to the time that they spent with my end users, and really making sure that in the end, I had a real thumbs up from my end users, that they had a real productivity gain, and we could really put a number behind those number of minutes saved for each meeting done.
And quick question before the other can answer to this. Do you think it was like, I would say, a specific experience for Aircall, or do you, because maybe, I don't know, maybe you've been in touch with one of the founder of, I would say, someone like well positioned in the company, or do you think that it's they are giving the same attention to all customers?
No, you touch on a good point. It's a relatively small company. I think they're around 2 million ARR. So you, at this point, you pick your kind of like potential new customers, maybe with more kind of like thoroughly, and who could be actually your next champion and so on. So I can answer this. I know that I also spoke to a lot of other AI tools in the same space, and it wasn't the same level of service. So
because sometimes it's a switch between sales founders and then funders-led growth,
yeah,
and sales-led growth.
But here in this case, I feel like it was again all about is it going to get value? Is it going to bring value to my sales team? Yes or no? And whoever knows each other between investors and so on, that's not the point.
Interesting.
And I had the opposite experience where it was also with kind of founders-led type of sales team. Phenomenal AI tool. We started a proof of concept. It was working extremely well for us at Lattice. When we started to enable the team, where the entire team was seduced by the tool, unfortunately, one thing that I didn't check and they didn't check was the compliance part. so are not SOC 1 or SOC 2 or ISO 27001 compliance. So after like multiple months of work and project and code and enablement and training, we had to kill the project. So that's something, you know, also that we've done at Lattice, you know, when I joined, was as a part of the discovery stage, not only to make sure that you focus on pain discovery, not only on technical discovery, not only on tech stack discovery, but also on compliance discovery. What is, you know, super important and mandatory for your buyers in terms of certification, so you can avoid wasting your time and the time of your champion as well. I know it's painful, but you know, you have to consider that really, really early, and that's not a problem that we all had during the good years, where it was like, yeah, we'll buy it and then we'll see later if we get caught by our procurement or security team. Now it's not the case at all.
Interesting.
I'll go real quick. I had a really good experience with a company called Factors.ai, and what they allowed me to do was to see from my LinkedIn campaigns. We're running LinkedIn campaigns, and they give you transparency into not who's clicking, because we know that those numbers have gone down, but who actually viewed. We experienced time to value in less than 2 months. I saw a person who had been viewing our ads, didn't click on a single ad, viewed our ads for 2 months, came to the site, invited us to a 6-figure RFP. But kind of the side of that to guard against is that I became the client that's like, okay, give me more, like during this freemium period, and I had them hook up my webhooks and other stuff. So they eventually had to say, okay, that's enough. You really got to buy the product now. But it's an example of how you can just give someone, let them experience time to value really quickly, and then they become a customer. And I brought them with me to 2 other companies since then. So.
Okay, I think it's time
You
to finish.
yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much to all of you. Are you staying around if people have some question? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be around.
Okay.